Hello and welcome to episode number 15 of The Dirty Corner. Once again, this is not going to be the episode that I've been building up for the last couple of weeks. Instead, I'm going to discuss something which is pretty important and I wasn't exactly sure where to place it in the series that I've been recording. But the episode I was intended on doing, in case you're new to this series, is one where I have a recording from a meeting where an external examiner is on a video call with several students, quite a lot of students actually, because it's students from my year, but it's everyone who's doing fine art as far as I'm aware. And I recorded that meeting and had mentioned that if I can find it, then I'll share it. But that just means I've got to do a lot of prep work because I type out subtitles. The reason I do that is because I put a voice modulator over everyone's voices to protect their identity. I also have to remove the names and remove anything which will identify anyone. So I don't just remove the names, I replace the names with something where you can keep track of who's talking and who's being referred to. So that's just a lot of work because the video is, I think it's 42 minutes long and I'm not even halfway through the subtitles yet. I had every intention of making it this week's episode, but it's just not possible, I don't think. So I'm going to try as best I can to get it done for next week. It might end up being the second to last episode at this rate, but hopefully it will be episode number 16. Who knows, watch this space. But for now, this episode is going to be called And the reason why I'm doing this episode is because I found these couple of, it's not even screenshots, I photographed the screen just to capture certain bits of text because of how inflammatory, I suppose, I found the information to be. And basically, to set it up, me and 3 other students launched a complaint against some mature students and faculty who were part of bullying and inappropriate behaviour and all kinds of things. We launched it on 3 different prongs of the complaint, which was a disproportionate access to learning, which meant that some students would get advantages that others wouldn't, would be given resources that other students weren't even aware of. The education was really poor, so a lot of the students had no idea about art history. Neither did I. I had to look up a lot of things myself, and I'm still learning a lot. There's massive holes in my knowledge, and there's a whole, parade of students who come out with a bachelor's in fine art who will have no idea on the basics of art history. So I think it's a really poor education. And the third prong was the bullying and harassment that was just rife in the studio. So I've been covering that a lot in this series, showing evidence of the intimidation by graffitiing on students' walls, physical harassment, which I've discussed, and other assault, kind of physical assault in a way, but it's the other type of assault that happened. And then physical damage and vandalism to people's work, showing I showed someone's kind of platform that they'd made where they were built lights into it was cracked and stomped on. Another student had their ceramic work smashed, and another student had a finished painting have a nail that's about that long, I think, shoved through it, pierced all the way through the canvas. I didn't show the canvas from the front because that student wasn't part of the complaint, so I didn't really want to include them necessarily too overtly. So anyway, things like that, as well as other stories. So if you haven't checked out the series, go and check it out. It's been a bit of a trauma dump for me just to kind of go, blah, this has been happening, and then there's this and then there's that. But I've been trying to organise my thoughts to make it coherent and make clear arguments. And the episode I wanted to put up this week was the other side. It was hearing other students who didn't feel the same as I did. And you can hear me and a couple of students who have criticisms for the school up against some students who don't have criticism, speaking to the external examiner. So hopefully That will be next week's episode. At some point it will be posted. I've no idea if it'll be next week, the week after, or, you know, if this is 15, then we've not got many left. So it'll be coming soon. So the messages that I said I had taken screenshots of, not screenshots, photographs of the screen, were following the complaint. And as part of that complaints process, the people who are being accused of bullying and harassment and unfair treatment were interviewed. And their interview was mostly just saying, no, it's fine, no, the students have all made up, there's no issue there, no formal complaint was made by this and that. If anything like that happened, I'm sure it would, you know, continue, and, you know, all these kinds of things that they just made up and lied about. They also made a couple of accusations in there, which were quite, you know, hypocritical. So that's what I'm going to go through, is some of the things that they said, and then I'm going to try to contextualize why it's completely untrue what they've said. So let's begin. It says here, for the question, what are the program team's thoughts on how the perception of the unpleasant environment within the studio could be resolved for the complainants and any possible friction between them and the wider group? That's quite a good question, really. You know, as far as like, how can we fix this? You know, if you watch the episode where I had a disciplinary meeting, if you haven't, the link is here. The disciplinary meeting video, I mentioned a couple of times, we should really have a sit-down mediation with the people involved, because now that we have complainants and an established timeline for what's happened, we should have some kind of chat about how to fix it and what should happen. Brought forward evidence and enough to kind of validate the statements that were made by me and other students in the complaint. So it'd be nice to try and fix this in some way. And instead, it didn't really happen. So this question I find quite interesting. So their response was, the team noted that mature student 1 could often be rude and disrespectful towards other students and their work, but that other students were happy to give him constructive feedback on his work and create a supportive environment in group critique sessions. I'm just going to stop there briefly, because this is completely untrue. I've never witnessed this. As far as I'm aware, this didn't happen, is that he wasn't unpleasant to other people's critiques. I've heard that people were unpleasant about his work because he was getting bullied. He was the student who I've mentioned with disabilities, chap in his mid to late 70s, you know, a nice guy, but he, you know, as far as some people when they're in their 70s don't act like it, he acts like he's in his 70s. He, you know, he likes the good old days, and he's got his old-fashioned culture, but he's not a bigot, he's not nasty or anything like that. So this claim was completely unfounded. But let's continue. The team thought that in general the cohort did not have any interest in creating any problems for others. The team suggested weekly pastoral care sessions for the cohort to give students the opportunity to talk about any issues may help. That never happened. It's not the worst idea, but if the tutors are part of the problem, then how is this a fix for, you know, what's all happened? How is it going to fix what's happening? It's kind of like, all right, well, let's put something in place that the students can talk about what's upsetting them. There was already something called the it was a platform where we could message each other. I forgot what it was called now. It was maybe it's called Unity or something like that. And I was blocked off there by the associate dean. He just removed all my messages and banned me off the platform. I appealed against it, and that was overturned because he was just targeting me. But he had no repercussions, not in the time that I was there. I've heard that he might not be there now. But anyway, that was another complete mess, and I don't know if I'm going to go into that in an episode, but that was horrible. So anyway, that's making claims about the mature student 1 being unpleasant just out of nowhere, not part of the question at all. You know, the question being, What are the program team's thoughts on how the perception of the unpleasant environment within the studio could be resolved and the complainants and any possible friction between them and the wider group? And they said, oh, well, this complainant's a problem. That wasn't the question. The question was, how can we resolve the issues between the complainants and the wider group? And to be honest, the question should have been about the tutors, not just like the students are having problems. The students have problems because some of the tutors are problems. It just seemed completely skewed, a lot of this, in my perception. Anyway, continuing on. Have any concerns about teaching content of the programme in semester 1 been raised by any students? And then the answer is, the team confirmed that no issues had been raised. It was noted that staff repeatedly refer to students to the programme module handbooks to remind them about assessment requirements, etc. This is going to come up in the video that I've been promising for the past couple of weeks, because I shouldn't say we, because it's a couple of students, it's not even me, who brought up, in fact, no, I do actually help, because one of the students, I think I call her, it's a studio friend, brings up that the communication's really poor. Some students know stuff and they won't tell the other students. If you ask a tutor, have we got anything coming up, they'll say, just look at your module handbook, or look at Moodle. They don't even say your handbook, they'll say, look at Moodle, which is really vague. Moodle is just a platform with loads of stuff on it. If you look at your module handbook, you're just scrolling through loads of information, and this is to look for a deadline for something. It's not clear, it's not good. And anyway, this was raised in the meeting with the external examiner, and it was defended by bully number 1, and I think I referred to her as young student 1, and she's a bit of a conflicting character as well, really, but not a bully, but just definitely part of that team. I mentioned that in the disciplinary meeting, that one of the students was allied with bully number 1, and I said it may seem weird, but that's just the way it is, because I'd reached out to her thinking that she'd witnessed or got some sympathy for some of the students who had been bullied and left the school. Anyway, so that is something which was raised, and they're now defending it, saying, no, we've just always said to the students, go and have a look at the handbook. In my view, if you've got deadlines, why just put them in one place? If you're encouraging students to be on this messaging platform, Teams, why not post it on Teams as well? Why not have that information every time you talk to students to say, by the way, you've got a deadline in the next couple of weeks for this module? Why not do that? If you're a tutor, how is that hard? Surely your students that you talk to, you have organised notes about what you're talking to them about, where you can give them pertinent information. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I'm not sure what the question is for this, but it's about the student reps. So I'm just going to go over to the answer for this, because this is where they start throwing accusations around. So here we are. The team stated that bully number 2 and bully number 1 and the general cohort had been positive about their roles as student reps. Well, that's not true. I mean, they may say generally, because there's not much feedback and no one wants to stand up to 2 blokes who have bullied a woman out of the school for asking them to turn off the music that they've been playing aggressively. So there's that. The team noted that SR, which is me, had approached other students in the cohort and asked them to become a student rep, and that one student had indicated that they had felt hounded by SR but did not wish to make a complaint. The student was advised that to document any contact with SR. Because there's a full stop, I'm going to pause there for a moment. This is such a flip of the actual truth. I have the message. If I can find the message, I will show it. But I don't know if I can find the message. If I can find it, I will show it. This student asked me if I would support her if she applied to be a student rep. And I said, absolutely, you have my full support. I never contacted her about this. I never reached out or encouraged it without her suggesting it. I said, yeah, you've got my support. I didn't afterwards go, are you going to be a student rep? Are you a student rep yet? what's going on with the student rep. I didn't follow up at all. It was just, yeah, you have my full support. Absolutely you do. That's it. That is just a blatant lie. There's just no way I would reach out to a student and say, you should be a student rep. It didn't happen. She was too late to be a student rep. And I probably said to her, I don't think they're going to let you do this. But if you can, absolutely, I back you all the way. And so did Mature Student 1. So did Studio Friend. All supported this student. I'm guessing she's called, in my reference, Young Student 3, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty positive it's Young Student 3 who wanted to be a student rep. The reason she wanted to be one was to bridge the gap between the student reps who were the bullies and the rest of us who were either on the out group or just impartial. Just didn't want to pay attention to whether people were being bullied, having their stuff damaged or stolen or anything like that. They just wanted to keep their heads down and pretend it wasn't happening. I wasn't one of those people, and there were a few others who weren't and wanted to do something about it. But I certainly didn't hound anyone, and it's so unjust being able to just make accusations and not back it up. They would have messages, they would have call logs, they would have some kind of record of me reaching out to this student. And they said she didn't want to make a formal complaint. Of course she didn't want to make a formal complaint. There's nothing to complain about. I'm going to look for that message. If I can find it, I'll find that message and post it, because, yeah, it's so annoying to see them just blatantly lie about you. But anyway, continuing. The team also noted that SR had not engaged with the student reps or student voice forums, but had raised issues in a general meeting with the external examiner, which they did not feel was appropriate. That isn't true either. I did go on the student voice thing. I went onto the student voice forum. I was banned from the student voice forum, and my student voice thing went through to the associate dean, which started the formal complaint, the wheels in motion there. So again, just lying, just completely lying. If I can show the messages from the what do they call it? Student voice forums. It's a lot to show. It probably needs more context, but I could show it. That might be another episode. I don't know if it'd be worth putting as another episode. Maybe it would, but it's just me basically saying, I don't think this is working well, and then him blocking me saying that message is inappropriate, and other people saying, I don't think this is working well, and him saying, thanks for the feedback, that's really useful. So it's kind of, it was just literally, I was, identified as a problem because I was raising a complaint against faculty. That's my interpretation, I should say, because that wasn't proven, but I can't see why I would be treated so differently to other students. Anyway, continuing. What are the circumstances of the incident which happened 14th of January when Mature Student 1 was reported to have a conversation in the reception area and was subsequently spoken to by staff? Okay, yeah, I hadn't even thought to mention this. Now, reading these messages, I forgot that this came up, but Mature Student 1 had spoken to me about what had happened. He is partially deaf, so when he's on the phone, people can hear the other end of the phone, and he's having a conversation with his wife saying, there's no one here who can help me. I'm worried that no one's helping me here. I don't know where to go, what to do. And some of them said that they interpreted that as threatening. I don't think that's necessarily in here. I'll keep reading in a moment. But I do have details about a complaint that was launched against him, which I helped him to beat, because it was just completely scummy what they were trying to do to him. They were just literally thinking, if a few of us team up, we can just steamroll over him. And I coached him beforehand saying, whatever you do, don't do this. Don't do that. Do this, and say this, and, you'll be safe. And he did a great job. His son was there with him in this meeting where he was being, where they were trying to discipline him. And his son got really upset. It was very funny because I heard the recording. It wasn't funny as far as, obviously it's not funny for them, but you could see how his son was just like, they should be ashamed of themselves, what they're doing, and absolutely they should. So what they're talking about was an incident where students had gone into the studios during COVID. They were in this lobby area because they weren't allowed to go to any other communal space, which is stupid because any communal space like that would be dangerous during a pandemic, and he'd had a phone call with his wife to say, I don't know where to go, no one's talking to me, or no one will help. And then they were suggesting that he'd behaved inappropriately or said something that was aggressive. But let's keep reading, because they just asked the question, and that's my memory of what he'd said and how they'd reacted. So here we go. The art school shop assistant and the caretaker had reported that mature student 1 had been shouting to someone on this phone in the foyer of the art school. He sounded unstable, and staff felt intimidated and were concerned for his well-being and for others due to his behaviour. Now, if you're concerned for someone's well-being, you don't put in a complaint about them. You're concerned for their well-being. You try to help them. Surely a member of staff would approach them and say, "You okay? Can I help with anything?" But no, instead they said, "Let's all get together, put a complaint about him and say he's intimidating, even though he's an old bloke who's deaf, who's talking on the phone to his wife and saying, I don't know what to do, no one will talk to me." The only other phone call that he made was to the associate dean saying, "I've had stuff stolen and I need help with it." And the associate dean then got the pretentious tutor to go walking around with him before they said, "Nope, your stuff's not here, too bad." So that's the whole thing, aside from the complaint against him, which is a complete mess. So continuing, mature student 1 was behaving erratically and appeared distant when spoken to by staff. Wormy's tutor and the dean's wife spoke to the mature student 1 in a in a quiet space in the building, and mature student 1 denied that the phone call had taken place and was made threatening comments about what others had reported, which that's not true either. This is the funny thing, is this is actually this isn't the reception area. This is mixing up two different events, because mature student 1 had told me that he was having a phone call with his wife another time when he was in a studio space, and that the dean's wife had walked past, heard it, and then her and the Wormy tutor got him into a room with just those two. And those two are both pretty, snake-like. I'd be very careful around them. In my opinion, they are anyway. And they basically were trying to suggest to him that he was behaving erratically and whatever, and he just felt that they weren't the people who he wanted to talk to or open up to. And he didn't tell me that he made any threats, but I wasn't there in the meeting. I can't imagine that he did. They've already lied about me twice, so I'm going to assume that he didn't do the things that they're suggesting. But that was a different event to the phone call in the lobby, where he spoke to the associate dean after his wife, and the associate dean got the pretentious tutor to go for a walk around with the mature student 1 to look for his stolen materials. Okay, let's continue. Question. The allegation of bullying of one student who left the programme during 2020 to 2021 has been made in a complaint, but complainants have been informed that this is not eligible for consideration, as it has not been made by the student themselves and it is out of time. However, it would be useful to know how students were informed of the student leaving, what information was provided to the cohort, and if any general action taken for the whole cohort. You see, now I'm tempted to show the video of when they announced this, because this was part of my evidence against them. But maybe that's going to be another episode as well. So let's keep reading. The dean's wife explained the reasons for withdrawing given by the students. It was noted that these were not consistent with the information stated in the complaint. The team were not made aware of the alleged racist comments made by another student, bully number 1. They didn't mention who that was at the time, and would have dealt with it if they had been aware. They were aware because I told them. I had meetings with the pretentious tutor and the dean's wife twice, and they both said, "Leave it with me, I'll take care of it." They said the same thing to her, my German friend, who ended up leaving. So, continuing, The cohort were informed of the student's withdrawal in an online session. They were told that the student wished to study elsewhere and no further details were provided as this was personal information. The dean's wife confirmed that she had joined in the joke made by bully number 2 and bully number 1, as she agreed that she would not wish to sit between them either. This was done in a jovial way and not vindictive or specific to the complainant's concern. The dean's wife stated that the student who had withdrawn had left on good terms with both herself and bully number 1. Well, several times in this series I've shown this email, but I'm going to show it again. So are you ready? Here it comes, and I'm going to read through it one more time. Regarding complaint made by Simon Renshaw to the school. Firstly, I would like to confirm the accuracy of Simon's description of rudeness and taunting behaviour aimed at me by the bullies. I did ask a tutor for help, suggesting mediation between the bully and myself, but no action of this kind was taken. Another set of incidents led by the double act of bully number 1 and bully number 2 and... that would have been bully number 1 and another mature student, which she means bully number 2, involved loud obscenities passed between them in front of their teenage female classmates. This kind of behaviour badly affected my ability to concentrate on work, both in college and also, which she means university, and also at home. So although I was still able to benefit and enjoy the printing and painting classes, the only long-term solution was to tactfully transfer to a more suitable college, which was a college and not a university, but it offered the same degree. I am now completing my 3rd year at Bangor University. If you require further details about these issues, I am happy to help, but I do not wish to pursue any kind of formal complaint since it will prolong the distraction from my current college workload. Kind regards, my German friend. That last part is important. It would prolong the distraction to my current college workload, from my current college, which is why she wouldn't want to pursue a formal complaint. And it was a distraction for me and the other students to try and take on a complaint as well as the workload. It was hard. But nonetheless, that says what they're suggesting about that student leaving, my German friend leaving, isn't true. It's not true what they're saying. They are lying. They are covering up for bullying on campus. Bullying to the extent that someone leaves. You know, shouting obscenities in front of young teenage girls is upsetting to everyone, but the stuff that they said to her about like German stereotypes and using words against her and using the music because they knew it upset her, it's all just weaponized, kind of behaviour. And they're just making excuses and lying about other students. That's all they're doing. They should have got in more trouble for this, but I did do an episode saying, was it worth it? And I found that to be quite fun to go through because the bullet points that I went through showed that all of the stuff in the complaint was then addressed in these codes of practice or something like that. It was called Studio Code of Practice. So they made the changes anyway. So I think that we pushed them into doing that. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's a bit too much of a coincidence. All of the topics they address were things which were part of this series, which I find kind of vindicating in a way. But there we are. So that shows you some of the things they said. If I can find that message from young student number 3 to show that she asked me for my support if she's going to be a student rep, and I said yes, that's not me approaching her to be a student rep, and that's not me in any way harassing her or hounding her. That was the word they used, hounding her. There we go. That's that. So this episode has covered these wildly inaccurate statements made by faculty when being interviewed, because that will be a member of staff, and I think that will be the dean's wife being interviewed in that Q&A, because the way that she's referring to the bullies, it's obviously not the bullies being talked to. So I'm guessing it's her. Oh, actually, no, I'll tell you who it'll be. Sorry, because these statements also refer to the wormy tutor and the dean's wife, so it'll be the pretentious tutor. That's who will be interviewed here. So absolute rubbish coming out of his mouth, as per usual, in my view. Regardless, all of these stories lead to the Dirty Corner. We're 5 episodes away from the end. I'm looking forward to ending the series because it's been a lot of it feels like moaning, and I don't want to moan, but it's just, this is supposed to be a cautionary tale where I present to you what has happened as accurately as possible. I hope you get some enjoyment and some knowledge out of the series, because it's not meant in a vindictive way. I don't want any of these people identified or harassed in any way. I just want people who go to art school or any place to know that these problems can happen, because it can happen in any job or at home with families or friends or whatever. This type of behaviour can happen. So to be aware of it, and I will try to make an episode on how I think a better reaction could have been, I could have had, and so have the other students. We could have been a bit more tactical and strategic about how to go about this, as opposed to what we did, which was just to try and honestly and emotionally address what was occurring. So that's that. But yeah, I appreciate you watching. I will see you next week, hopefully with the video that I've been prepping for the past fortnight or so. All right, see you then.